When Jim Jones claimed that he has had a greater influence on hip-hop than Nas, many online dismissed it as typical bravado from his confident persona. However, with each interview, catchy remark, and his attempts to include Nas in trending rap conversations, that assertion has begun to take on a new significance. What once seemed like an outrageous boast is now bordering on trolling. This raises an important question for hip-hop fans. When does confidence cross into delusion? Or, more provocatively, does Jim Jones truly believe what he's saying, or is he merely trying to exploit the viral nature of today's media, where being loud often trumps being right? Recently, the Dipset veteran appeared on the BagFuel podcast and reaffirmed his position. He claimed that the buzz and social media chatter sparked by his comments about Nas have brought the Queensbridge legend a level of attention he has never had before. He stated, "What I did for Nas probably has never been done for him in his life. He's never been that viral at all. Ever. He's never been talked about like this ever in his life." In this way, Jim Jones positioned himself within the narrative of one of hip-hop's most respected lyricists, not as an equal, but as someone who supposedly made Nas relevant in current discussions. By the way, welcome to Celebrity Hip Hop Showroom, where hip-hop and celebrity drama never sleep, so hit that subscribe button so you never miss the mess. Let's get into it. This is a bold and many would argue outrageous claim. However, the fascination of this situation lies not only in Jim's audacity but also in what it reveals about the changing dynamics of respect in hip-hop. While Jim Jones may not possess Nas's lyrical skill or cultural accolades, he is playing a different game, one that thrives in the digital age, where attention serves as currency and trolling can often eclipse talent in capturing the spotlight. It's worth noting that Jim Jones is no stranger to the upper echelons of hip-hop. As a founding member of the Diplomats, he significantly influenced early 2000s New York rap. His 2006 hit, We Fly High, remains a street anthem, and his later work, especially the critically acclaimed El Capo album, showcased his artistic growth and resilience in an industry known for discarding its veterans. He has outlasted many of his peers, not through a series of radio hits, but by staying visible, vocal, and relevant in discussions. But Nas? That's a completely different story. Since his debut with Illmatic in 1994, Nasir Jones has been regarded as hip-hop royalty. A lyrical genius, he has vividly portrayed the struggles, pride, and poetry of urban life. He has earned acclaim from critics, admiration from purists, and recognition from fans across all rap generations. From It Was Written to Stillmatic and his Grammy-winning King's Disease trilogy with Hit Boy, Nas has built a legacy that few can match. He is the quintessential rapper. He doesn't chase clout, he builds monuments. When Jim asserts that he has made Nas more popular than ever, it understandably raises skepticism. Many view this claim as not only disrespectful but also absurd. Viral? Nas has inspired generations with his lyrics, faced diss tracks from Jay-Z only to later collaborate with him, toured worldwide, co-founded Mass Appeal, engaged in business ventures, and established himself as one of the greatest MCs. He didn't need a social media feud to accomplish any of this. Nevertheless, Jim has a different viewpoint. In a recent episode of Fat Joe and Jadakiss podcast, he even claimed to have sold more records than Nas. However, a quick glance at Billboard data quickly disproved that assertion. Nas has more chart appearances, longer career longevity, and more platinum certifications. Eventually, Jones walked back his statement, saying, "There are many people who have sold more records than me who are no longer around. Gone. I'm still here." This was a subtle shift, trying to steer the conversation from sales numbers to longevity. In his opinion, lasting power is more significant than sales figures. This is where it becomes interesting. Jim Jones has indeed endured. He continues to produce music, participate in podcasts, and spark online debates. In today's culture, being talked about may carry more importance than being respected. Jim seems to be walking a fine line, embracing controversy not as a blunder, but as a strategy. He knows that mentioning Nas in a provocative way guarantees attention. In 2025, attracting attention is what truly counts. But here's the question, does Jim genuinely believe this? Or is he simply adopting a persona, Stretching the truth for the sake of conversation? At times, it seems like it could be a bit of both. Jim Jones has always had something to prove. He was never the lyrical one in Dipset. That title went to Cameron or Juelz. He wasn't the favored child of the East Coast and didn't inherit his status. Instead, he built his brand through hard work and self-assurance, carving out a niche for himself by refusing to be ignored. This is admirable. However, when that determination turns into a skewed perception of reality, suggesting that Nas owes his relevance to a few podcast mentions, it begins to feel desperate or, even worse, attention-seeking. For Nas fans, this isn't just annoying, it's offensive. They recall the classics, like Ether, and recognize how Nas has motivated countless rappers to appreciate lyricism, his remarkable comebacks, business achievements, Grammy victories, and sold-out shows. To claim that Nas has never been talked about in this manner before, implying that social media trends are more important than decades of respect, is a disservice to history. However, this situation is less about facts and more about gaining attention. Currently, Jim Jones has seized that attention. He has inserted himself into the discussion, sparking debates about Nas. He's made headlines and stirred reactions. On social media, he seems to be winning, even if that victory is superficial and rooted in trolling rather than substance. This tactic is risky. When the dust settles, a legacy is what truly matters. Jim may dominate the online discourse for a brief period, but Nas's impact will last well beyond the current news cycle. While Jones may thrive in the temporary noise, Nas is firmly entrenched in hip-hop history. One is chasing attention, while the other is already a part of the genre's legacy. Nonetheless, their differing representations are significant. Jim Jones represents the fast-paced, attention-seeking nature of modern rap media, while Nas embodies the core of the genre, thoughtful, grounded, and steadfast. Their clash, though unusual, mirrors the current state of hip-hop, a culture caught between fame and artistry, and between scandal and stability. So, does Jim Jones genuinely believe he has elevated Nas's status? Or is he simply trolling to stay relevant? It could be a mix of both. Perhaps Jones thinks that his brief appearances in headlines translate to a form of cultural importance that outweighs gold records from the 90s. Or maybe he knows he's provoking a response and enjoys it. Regardless, the fact that we are even discussing this shows that his strategy has worked. However, it's important to note that Nas doesn't need Jim Jones to remain relevant. In fact, this entire situation highlights the difference between them. Nas is talked about because he is Nas, while Jim is part of the conversation because he is talking about Nas. That distinction separates a legend from a mere provocateur. Ultimately, this moment will pass. New podcast episodes will come out, blogs will chase the next viral quote, and Jim Jones will look for the next headline. But Nas will continue to be Nas, still writing, still rhyming, still shaping the essence of the genre he helped create. And perhaps the best response of all is simply to remain silent. When your legacy is secure, you don't need to prove it on a podcast, you live it. No amount of trolling can change that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this situation, so please share your opinions in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on this story.